This is 2015's Hell House LLC. Warning, spoilers ahead. We open up to a found footage point of view, and we see that this is supposed to be a sort of documentary on a haunted house tragedy that happened back in 2009. They get out of their car, and we watch as Diane and her cameraman walk around the side of a boarded-up house. Eventually, she questions Martin about what happened that fateful night at the Abaddon Hotel, but he honestly has no idea. In fact, none of the people they interview seem to have a good idea. Diane tries multiple doors, but they're all locked up. It turns out that the hotel was made into a haunted house experience called Hell House, but something went wrong in 2009. When we watch the footage from the news crew that night, no one seems to know what happened. Then we see that there was actually a video of the Hell House posted to YouTube from the night of the incident. In the video, we see a group of friends entering the house, and their haunted experience starts. The house is considerably mild in comparison to a lot of other haunted houses, but it still manages to pull a few scares out. Eventually, the friends notice some of the crew running behind the scenes, and they start to wonder if everything they're seeing is supposed to happen. They continue, but they eventually come to a flight of stairs that has other tourists scrambling to get back up the stairs. Panic and chaos run rampant, and some of the crew starts to rush the tourists out to safety, where police and the fire department are already arriving on scene. This would still be questionable as to whether this was real or not. It would be either the worst or best Halloween scare of your life. The best ones are the ones where you never actually find out whether it was real or not. Next, we listen to the 911 call, and the woman that's calling tells the operator that there's something in the walls. Suddenly, we hear a sort of roar, but the call is cut short. Apparently, the police say that there was a malfunction with the house, but no one seems to believe that. Apparently, a photographer named Martin made his way into the house at some point, and he posted pictures that really made people question everything. Martin found trails of blood on the floor, and he says that debunks the theory of a gas leak that was being spread. The more pictures he posts, the more it looks like there was a terrible struggle, and he makes his way to the basement next. When he got to the stairs that we saw in the YouTube clip, he says that he couldn't bring himself to go down. The first semi-smart guy ever to be found in a horror movie. When you find the creepy stairs that lead to dark hell, you don't go wandering down them. Sometimes, it's better to not find answers. Next, we meet Sarah, who is actually a member of Hell House. Throughout her interview, she's visibly uncomfortable, and she says that it might actually be better for people to simply speculate what happened that night instead of actually knowing. Diane pries deeper though, and Sarah pulls out a bag of tapes that supposedly showed everything. Sarah herself hasn't even watched the tapes, but she seems to know the horrors that are on them. On the first tape, we see Sarah and Paul riding in a car over a month before the night of terror. Meanwhile, Alex and Mac have to pull over to have a fight, but Sarah brings them back to the car so she can go get food. Sarah's mind's where it needs to be. Food's an absolute priority. You can't run from evil on an empty stomach. Once they make it to town, they find the hotel that will become Hell House, and they explore the grounds. Eventually, the group starts to get bad vibes from the hotel, but they still think that this is the perfect place to set up their haunted house. Alex believes that the crew can get this place up and running, and they immediately start looking around to see what they've got to do to prepare. Eventually, the group heads down to the basement, and they find all sorts of Bibles on the floor with pagan marks all over the brick wall. Sarah doesn't feel too comfortable with working in the hotel, but Alex sees it as half their work already being done for them. Sarah says that once they started to sleep in the hotel overnight, that's when things really started to go downhill. Meanwhile, these idiots are drinking and playing around at the bar inside. As the group drinks, they talk about previous houses they've set up, and they have a great time talking about their previous ventures. Sarah's seemingly new to the group, but Alex is sure that she'll be a great fit for the group since they've left the city. Alex makes a toast to the new Hell House, but Tony seems worried about not getting enough people to come to the event. As we saw, that wasn't a problem at all. Later, they get cameras up and running all over the house, but the basement seems to be a problem for the technology. They come up with a plan to simply place something down there to keep an eye on things, and that solves the problem of the basement. Things seem pretty normal at first, but one night, Paul records a little diary entry, and we can see a woman is watching him from the shadows. Paul thinks that it's Sarah, but when he calls out to her, the figure creepily walks back out of the room. In the morning, Paul creeps into Alex and Sarah's bedroom to tell him that the other actors are here, and he gets a nice little peep show. When we go back to Diane's interview, it turns out that one police officer did talk about his experience on the scene, and he mentions that one of the victims in the basement was one of the Hell House members. This was a really slow start for a found footage movie, but it's really starting to pull me in by making me wonder who survives and what ended up happening. If we don't actually see footage of the basement event, I will be disappointed though. One of the actresses is Melissa, and Alex tells her that she's their main attraction in the basement. Melissa seems more concerned about the rumors that go around town about the hotel. Alex tries to keep things hush-hush, but Paul gets her to tell him about some of the stories. Apparently the owner hung himself, and the guests of the hotel started acting strange before facing an untimely end. The history of the hotel starts with a man named Tully, and he's the one that built the hotel. Tully was supposedly the head of a cult, and multiple guests of the hotel disappeared mysteriously. All of them were last seen checking into the hotel, and that was the end of them. I would say that would be enough to shut the hotel down, and why don't we just tear it down for good measure? Why do cities keep these creepy bad places around? At least there are some good dark tourism places now. Otherwise, I can't imagine why they would want to hold on to broken down buildings that are just costing them money. With 16 days left before opening, the crew is really starting to piece things together, but Paul is getting restless. One night he wakes up to a strange noise, and he finds some of the other crew heard a scream as well. Later, they find some damage in the hotel they're going to have to fix, but that's pretty much the only problem. The decorations are really starting to come together, and Paul takes a tour of the hotel to document all of the work they've done. When he goes to look for Tony, he winds up running into a prop that seems to be someone in costume, but the costume doesn't look recognizable. He thinks that it's just Tony, but when he finds Tony in another room, he rushes back to the basement to find the clown. No! Don't run into the basement to chase the creepy specter clown. This is why Pennywise's job is so easy. The victims just run right to him. Paul shows the footage to the rest of the crew, but they all think he's just playing an elaborate prank on them. Later, Paul and Tony get ready to do a walkthrough, but once things start, Paul notices the clown man has appeared yet again. Paul feels like he's losing it and tries to confront Alex about what he saw. Alex wants him to pull it together so that they can come through with the haunted house, and Paul walks off to let Alex think it over. That night, Paul is woken up by a strange sound again, and he comes out to find the clown standing on the stairs. This time, Tony wakes up with him and sees the prop standing there. They walk downstairs to investigate it, but it turns out to just be a mannequin. Don't trust mannequins. I've been saying that forever now. Better yet, they find Sarah downstairs mumbling a broken language, and they turn their back on the mannequin. And it's gone. Yeah, it's time to go. End of story, end of Hell House. The three of them look around for the clown, but when they find it, the house seems to be coming alive as well. They quickly run back upstairs, and apparently they just sleep it off? No, there's a moving clown mannequin downstairs. You don't just close your eyes and forget about it. The next night, Paul wakes up to find a creepy girl in his room, and he tries to hide under the covers. What are we, 5 years old again? Does that actually work? The whole if I can't see it, then it can't see me? Yeah, no, the answer is no. Paul is promptly attacked. Soon, Tony comes in to check on Paul, and he finds that Paul has mysteriously disappeared. Tony tries to talk to Mac and Alex, and they just assume that he's going to be a no-show for the house. When they try to call him, a strange feedback wrecks their ears, and they try to keep going. That night, the three of them are woken up by the sound of the piano playing, and they go to check it out. When they get to the room with the piano, they only find a prop sitting at the bench, and the piano plays itself. Mac thinks that this is Paul messing with them, and they keep looking around. Eventually, they make their way down to the basement, and the clown prop heads turn to watch the moving around. They also find Paul sitting unconscious, but when he wakes up, he definitely doesn't seem all there. When the class clown isn't making jokes anymore, something's wrong. Tony gets Alex down to the basement in the morning, and he explains everything that happened. Mac makes some jokes about the situation, and Tony decides that he's quitting. Mac tries to chase after him, and after he tells him a secret that Alex is keeping from everyone, Tony decides that he has to stay too. When it comes time for opening night, Sarah explains everything was ready to go without any issues, and Alex tries to motivate the crew to do their best. After the crew goes to get ready, Tony apologizes to Alex for overreacting earlier. Later, he goes to check on Paul, but he isn't moving from his bed. When he goes outside with Alex to film the opening, we see that the line for the house is enormous, and the rest of the crew goes to their positions. Mac heads inside to cut Melissa's shirt open, and the other actor literally just has to sit on the floor in costume to watch her. After getting Melissa ready, Mac heads back upstairs, and we see the control room, where Alex tries to coordinate everything with Tony. He tries to radio Mac, but the walkie-talkies are malfunctioning. Finally, the doors open to the crowd, and the first tourists head inside. Everyone's terrified as they walk through the hotel, and everything seems to be going well. Soon, Sarah runs to Mac's position, and she tells him that she spotted Paul running around. Mac tries to radio Alex about Paul, but then he notices Joey running out of the basement as well. Next, Sarah hears screams coming from upstairs, and she rushes out to meet up with Alex in the control room. Mac continues to radio to Alex about the ruckus in the basement, but he's not getting any answers. We've officially come full circle, and I really hope that we get to see what happened. Yes, we do. This is a good movie simply because it shows us this part. If it had left this as a complete mystery, this would have been the worst movie. Joey runs out of the basement and leaves Melissa chained to her station, and she starts crying out to the crowd to go get help since this isn't part of the show. Everyone's confused, but they wind up finding that there's no way out. The crowd tries to push back up the stairs, but they look back to find a figure looming over Melissa. Eventually, the figure turns its attention to them, and pandemonium ensues. The crowd tries to find a way back outside, but the tears are starting to happen all throughout the house. Everyone runs for safety, but it seems as though there's nowhere to escape it. Mac finds Tony and tells him to go to the basement, but the door shuts on Mac before he can join him. When Mac and Sarah go to the attic, they find Alex hanging, and the other spirits make their presence known. In the present, Sarah tells Diane that she went to the front door after that, and the police just rushed her out. Diane is curious about how she got to the front door without being attacked again, but Sarah really needs to take a break from the interview. Sarah tells her that she needs to rest in her room for a couple of hours, and she heads off camera. We can still hear her though. She tells Diane that she should really try and get into the Hell House, and when Diane tells her that she can't get a permit, she pushes even more for her to find a way to get in. Later, Diane talks to her cameraman about breaking into the Hell House, and they decide to go for it. When Diane goes down to the receptionist to leave a message for Sarah, the lady tells her that Sarah actually isn't the name of any guest there. After Diane leaves, her assistant continues going through the tapes Sarah brought her, and he eventually finds one that shows the camera slowly walking around the house. It's actually Sarah, and she hugs Paul when she finds him at the door. Paul ends up grabbing the camera from her, and he proceeds to beat her with it over and over as sirens wail outside. Her body is then dragged away by an entity as Paul is left alone. Paul then ends his own journey. I thought they said that only one of the members died. That's definitely 3 if my count's correct. Paul, Sarah, and Alex. Also, who was Sarah during the interview then? Meanwhile, Diane and her cameraman break into the hotel, and they find a way into the basement. The cameraman doesn't want to go any further, and Diane agrees to simply check out the rest of the house. When they find the stairs to the second story, they head up and find the room that Sarah said she was staying in. Diane unlatches the door, and they find Sarah sitting on the edge of the bed. That's a hard pass, just jump out that window. Too late. The piano can be heard in the distance, and then the credits roll. I'm not a fan of found footage movies, but this one had some pretty good moments. Give it a shot. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.